Alright guys, so I hope you guys enjoy the food. That you guys like what we have for you guys, and I hope the seniors enjoyed all the decorations and stuff we had. At the end, we're gonna have an opportunity for you guys to take pictures with your parents. Al final, vamos a tener una oportunidad para que los padres de los graduados se puedan tirar una foto aquí en nuestro frame, DIY. So yeah, but I didn't want to let go today without having a quick reflection with you guys. I don't know about quick, but definitely a reflection. No, I'll try to keep it sort of short. But yeah, and as you guys see, I wanted to title this class "A New Chapter," right? Because obviously all of us, I gotta include myself, right? The seniors, we're heading into a new chapter in our lives, right? It's a big step, a lot of big decisions coming up. But also everybody, right, is heading into a new chapter, is heading into a new reality, as they want to call it. So I decided to do this class and approach it basically a little bit of encouragement towards the future, but also establishing some important principles that we need as we move on in our lives and into this next chapter. So as I was going through the week, I was thinking, what exactly am I going to talk about, right? Well, what can I say this Friday? You know, it's a very special Friday, our first Friday back that I don't have to be speaking in front of a camera for Zoom or anything like that. So I prayed to God a lot on what exactly I should be talking about. And I decided to structure this basically on a couple of ideas and thoughts that God's been placing in my heart throughout the week, whether I heard it from a sermon or podcast, or I read it somewhere, or simply God just put that in my heart. And I wanted to start with this. And it's a quote that I heard this last week, I believe, and it says, "Do what is easy and life will be hard. Do what is hard and your life will become easy." So I thought that was an amazing quote, and it caught my attention right off the bat. But as I started thinking, I was like, this actually reflects a principle that is in the Bible. So I head over to Matthew chapter 7, verses 13 and 14. It says, "Enter by the narrow gates, for the gate is wide and the way is easy that leads to destruction. And those who enter by it are many. For the gate is narrow and the way is hard that leads to life. And those who find it are few." What it's basically saying here, right, is there is two types of gates, you could say, right, in life that you could choose and that you could take. There's one that most people take, right, is the one that it says there. The first one, right? That one leads to destruction. It's easy, it's wide, so it's easy to get in. A lot of people choose this path, the easy path, right? The one that people tend to be attracted by. And then there's the other one, right? The narrow one, the one that's harder to get in, you could say, the harder one to take. And very few people take that route. It's not easy to pursue Jesus. It's not easy to follow Jesus. There is a cost to following God. There is a cost to putting God in first place in your life, to obeying Him and living by what He has to say for our lives. But let me say this, it's rewarding. And you know why it's so hard to follow Jesus? What makes it hard to choose this route is because when you look around the people that are next to you, they chose, right, not the narrow path, but the easy one, right? The one that's wide that everybody goes through. And that's what makes it so hard, because you're living your life, right? And you're saying, I want to choose this, but you're looking around, and what happens? Not everybody's choosing that way. People are making different decisions that don't go according to what you want to accomplish in life. So now there's two things that you can do. One is you can change who those people around you are, right? That circle of friends, the people around you. That's something that you can do. And sometimes that's necessary to do, because the people that we hang around with obviously have a big influence as we move on in our lives. But here's the thing, you can't always rely on that. Because what happens when you're at work and you have co-workers who also didn't choose the same path as you? Are you gonna go talk to your manager or your boss? It's like, hey, so you gotta fire these people because I'm trying to stay holy, I'm trying to pursue Jesus. These people gotta go. That's not gonna happen, right? Or what happens when you're in school? Are you gonna ask the principal or the teacher to change your classmates because these people don't have the same mindset as you, because these people don't have the same goals in pursuing Jesus as you? That's not gonna happen. So what's the second option you got? Set your sight on the finish line. Focus on what you want to accomplish and pursue Jesus, and don't take your eyes off him. You know, and I always use this analogy, right, with horses, with race horses. When they're in a race, right, they cover them right here. Why? So they could stay looking forward, so they could keep their eyes on the prize, right? Stay looking forward, because the moment they start looking around them, they get distracted. Look what this guy's doing. Look at the way he's going. Look at the way he did this, right? And you start getting distracted. You start getting ideas, right? And persuaded into doing some of these things. That's what I said there. Pursue Jesus and don't take your eyes off him. And we actually see that in Hebrews chapter 12, verse 3, and it says, "Let us fix our eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith, who for the joy set before him endured the cross, scorning his shame, and sat down on the right hand of the throne of God. Consider him who endured such a position from sinful man, so that you will not grow weary and lose heart." I love that first part when it says, "Let us fix our eyes on Jesus." I like to look at that as just literally focusing on one thing and one thing only, and that is Jesus, right? He's saying that that's pretty much the only way to go about life. Being focused on one thing, right? And being determined to follow the one thing. We need to stop getting distracted by the people around us and refocus our attention to the one above us, right? And that's something that's not easy to do, but something that's necessary to do. As we move on into this new chapter, we're going to meet with all kinds of people. We're going to handle different situations that we weren't exposed to before. If we're not focused on what we want to accomplish, if we're not focused on pursuing Jesus, it's going to be so easy to stray away, to lose track, to lose focus of where you want to go. And you know, it's very easy, you could say, to feel unmotivated when you're going through life and you're trying to do what's good, and you're trying to obey your parents, and you're trying to listen to the word of God, and you're trying to actually follow Jesus in your daily walk, and it feels like it's worthless. Why? Because you're seeing other people do differently. Oh, why do I have to do this, or why do I have to do that? Is it really worth doing good? And guys, what I said in that quote in the beginning, right? When we do what is hard, your life will become easy. It will do the opposite effect of what we go. A lot of people we see, they're sacrificing early, whether it's in school or just simply with their life, right? That pays off. It really does. It rewards. And that's what I want to encourage you guys to keep doing. And remember that your attitude can be your greatest strength or your greatest weakness. It can be your greatest strength or your greatest weakness. And that's something that we have to remember, because you know, we're not going to be able to control every situation that comes into our lives. We're not going to be able to control every person that's going to come into your life, and sometimes it's just going to make your life harder. You're not going to be able to control that. You're not going to be able to control a bad response from a co-worker, from your parents, from your family, from your friend, whatever it is. You're not going to be able to control a lot of those things. However, what happens next is determined by how you respond to it. And that's what's extremely important. And that's why I say your attitude can be your greatest strength, or it can be your greatest weakness. And I heard somebody once say, attitude is altitude, right? It's the way that you're going to get through life. It all depends on your attitude. You know, a lot of times we have goals and aspirations on what we want to do with our lives. We want to make an impact in the world, that's for sure. We want to make an influence on other people. But that has to start with us. That change has to start within you. That change has to happen in you. And in Galatians chapter 5, verses 22 and 23, it says, "But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, forbearance, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Against such things there is no law." We have to understand that our heart chases what is fed. Our heart chases what is fed. And I heard this in a podcast not too long ago. The one that I sent out to you guys, which I hope you guys listen to. But it's a podcast that, you know, deals with a lot of things with the youth and things like that. And I heard this, and the guy that was speaking said this: your heart chases what is fed. A lot of times we complain about the situations that we're in, right? Look what happened, or look at this. Your heart chases what is fed. You want a godly woman, you want a godly man in your life, right? But you're feeding trash into your heart, and that's what is going to attract trash. As you know, as hard as that might be, you can't expect to get something when what you're feeding your heart is leading you exactly the opposite way. We need to be careful with what we're feeding our hearts, with what we're feeding our minds with. You want to let go of maybe this addiction that you're going through, but once again, you're feeding your heart with the very same things that are going to continue to lead you down that path. By the same social media accounts, by the same people that are leading you to get deeper into this addiction. You complain about your attitude and how you're angry all the time and how you're upset and how easily you get mad, but you keep feeding anger into your heart. You keep letting your anger control you. Feed your heart with Jesus and you will see the difference. And to this new chapter in your life, make it a priority to feed your heart with things from God, and you will see the difference in your life. Now, I'm not here to tell you that once you commit your life to Jesus, everything bad is going to disappear, because there are times in which you are going to feel weak. There are times in which you are going to struggle. But you know that's part of life, and that's part of growing, and that's part of new beginnings and new chapters in our lives. But here's the thing. When you feel physically and emotionally weak, it's when it's most important to be spiritually strong. As I was saying, there's going to be times where you literally feel physically weak, right? But there's also times where you just feel emotionally down, where you don't feel motivated to do anything, where you just want to stay home and you want to do this, right? Or not do anything at all. When you just feel depressed, maybe sad, that's when it's extremely important to be spiritually strong, because that's when the devil is going to attack the most. Guys, we keep moving on through life. We keep making decisions. You are going to struggle. There's going to be times of pain. I'm not here to tell you that that's never going to happen. But that's when it's most important to cling to the Word of God, to come to Jesus and see what He has to offer. A man by the name of W.E.H. Leckie, he said the following words. He said, "The character of Jesus has not only been the highest pattern of virtue, but the longest incentive in His practice, and has exerted so deep an influence that it may be truly said that the simple record of 3 short years of active life has done more to regenerate and soften mankind than all the disquisitions of philosophers and all the exhortations of moralists." This guy, he's a historian, and he's analyzing Jesus and his character, who he was, and he's saying in just 3 years of life, right, his character, who he was, has done more for humankind, right, to regenerate, as he's saying there, and soften mankind than all philosophers and moralists throughout history and time. An interesting thing about this guy, this historian, he was agnostic. He did not believe in God. So he is looking at Jesus. He is analyzing Jesus purely as a historian. And he sees Jesus what? As a historical figure. And what he's saying is very much true. There's nobody in history that's had the influence, you could say, of Jesus in the sense when we're talking about morals and just pure living, right? So this guy's an agnostic, and he's looking at Jesus as a historical figure. But now, tonight, I want to really encourage you guys to look at Jesus as more than just a historical figure. And that's something that I think we struggle in Christianity, and what slows down a lot of people from growing in their faith. Because there's this idea that the person of Jesus Christ needs to become something real in your life. What I mean by that is a lot of times we have this idea of God as a mystic figure, as something that is in heaven, as this almighty, powerful being that it teaches about in church, but that is way far away from us. That is not something that we can relate to. But that's what I'm saying. We need to see Jesus, right? We need to learn to see the person of Jesus Christ as somebody that just becomes real in your life. And that's not something that's easy to do, but that's our mission. And when we accomplish that, man, is when we truly experience God. You see, we have to understand that although God is powerful, although God is almighty and He knows all things and He can do all things, He's still God, the creator of the universe. He still wants to accomplish a relationship with you. He wants to be in a relationship with you. He wants to listen to your prayers. He wants you to put His trust on Him. And that's where the key is. And a lot of times we struggle to make that connection. And we struggle to view this, almighty being that is over there and to how He can relate to me. How can what He did and what is written in this Bible apply to my life? But when you start seeing this, right, when you start seeing God this way, when you start seeing Jesus this way, that's when you see the difference. But here's the thing, the only way to ever get to that point is by spending more time with God, by getting to know Him more. As simple as it sounds. You're never going to see Jesus as a person in your life that you can relate to if you're not spending more time with Him. And there's a couple of things when it comes to spending more time with God. One, the closer you get to God, the more you know about who God is, the more you're going to realize that you need Him. A lot of times we're going through life, and most of the time we don't even feel guilty about a lot of the things that we might be doing. A lot of the time we're just going, eyes closed, and we keep going, we keep going. The reason that happens is because we're far away from God. You see, the moment that we start pursuing Jesus, the moment that we start getting closer to God, is the moment that you're going to start seeing all your flaws. Because what is God? God is the light, right? And when we're in darkness and we start getting closer to God, He is exposing all of our flaws, all of our mistakes, and our immediate need of Jesus Christ. It's not an easy challenge to do, to get closer to God, to want to know more about God. But you can't expect to live these things out in your life if you're not seeking Him. See, God will never impose Himself in your life. God is not going to, go to your life and be like, hey, you have to follow me, and that's not the way He works. He gave us His holy word, and He said, this is who I am, right? I am the all-powerful God who loves you and wants to be in a relationship with you. And we hear this all the time, but it's not until we get out of our comfort zone, step forward and be like, let me give this a try, let me see who Jesus is, that we're going to see who He really is. And as I was saying, not just the seniors, everybody's moving on to a new chapter, into a new reality. And honestly, the sad reality is that for a lot of us that are here tonight, maybe the church isn't a part of your future plans. God isn't a part of your future plans. You have this idea of how you want your life to be. And after being about 7 years now in this church, different groups of people have passed. And we've seen several, youth groups, you could say, that we've had that, have kind of disappeared a little bit, and new ones come up, and this is the one we have now. And it's sad to see that. It's sad to see how a lot of people leave, right, and move on into their lives and do something, and pretty much forget about a church, and if they don't have them in their plans, you could say. But here's what I want to say. Wherever it is that you go in life, whatever plans that you have, or whatever things that you do, remember that there is life in Jesus. There is life in Jesus. And, we're going to find ourselves in difficult situations at times. And we're going to find ourselves in different situations, all of us, as we grow and we make these decisions. But let me say this. You're going to find yourself at times when you're struggling with your relationship with your parents. When you're struggling with your relationship with simply your friends. There's going to be times when you might be battling an addiction. You might be battling a mentality or an attitude. You're struggling with self-worth. You're struggling with depression. You're struggling with anxiety, stress. You can't stop thinking about these things. Come to Jesus. And I'm speaking to you guys from the bottom of my heart. There is life in Jesus. And nothing comes even close or compares to what Jesus has to offer. I guarantee you that if you put these things before God, if you truly lay your life before Jesus, He will give you a way to deal with these problems. He's not going to disappear them, but He's going to give you a way to deal with them. And I also guarantee you that you're going to see how a lot of those problems are going to start going away, because you're going to come to the realization that all you needed was a little bit of Jesus in your life. Now all your problems are going to disappear. But with God in your life, we see a big difference. I have about 10 more Fridays. I said I wasn't going to get emotional. But I think it's coming. I have about 10 more Fridays. I have about 10 more Fridays here in the church. Before I leave to Word of Life for a year. I practiced this before it happened, I guess. But I'm not gonna lie to you guys and tell you guys that I'm not scared for what God has for my life. But all I can say to you guys is that even though I failed God so many times, time after time, with my actions, with my words, I know that I'm committed to pursue Him, and I'm committed to follow Him, because I know that what He has to offer to my life is so much greater than what I could ever plan. And you know, as we move on and into our lives, I just want to keep encouraging you guys and telling you guys about this youth group that has meant so much to me. I'm sorry. This has been a big part of my life, and it's meant so much to me, and God has really used me and has shaped me into the man that I am, and it's because of each and every single one of you. And to all my seniors, you know, we made it through. God blessed us into this stage, and like Susie said earlier, you know, if He's brought us this far, He's not gonna let us stop right here. And I just want to encourage you guys to do the same thing. You know, maybe you've been battling this for quite some time. You've been in the church for a while, and you haven't truly committed yourself to this life in Jesus. Or maybe you have at one point, but you got distracted. Let me tell you guys, there is life in Jesus. There is hope in Him. And when you put your trust in Him, man, you will see the difference. I know there's sometimes bad testimonies out there of people who claim to be Christian, who claim to follow God, but things change, right? And that might leave you wondering, is this faith really worth it? What is this? Focus on Jesus. Set your eyes on Jesus and see what He has for your life. And if you're sitting there tonight, and if you felt even the slightest thing in your heart to do something, to make a decision, I encourage you guys to not leave here tonight without stepping out of your comfort zone and talking about how you feel. A lot of times we have this mixed feelings, right? We don't know what exactly we're feeling in the moment. Is this God that's talking to me? Is just me being sentimental? This is nonsense, or you know, what is really going on? I suggest you guys not to Google it. If you've had the blessing of growing up with Christian parents, man, take advantage of that. Go to them immediately and ask them what it means to follow Jesus. What it means, what does that mean? There is life in Jesus. Ask them, what does it mean to commit yourself to the Lord? And if you don't, if you didn't have that blessing, let me tell you something. Look around you. You have another family, right? This church offers you that. And if you're questioning that, you know, I get that there's life in Jesus. I get that we have to commit ourselves to God and see what He has for our lives, because it's 10,000 times better. But you don't know how that is. You don't know exactly how that works, how that looks in your everyday life. What does that imply for your daily decisions? Look around you, right? You can come to me. You come to Pastor, to Susie, to Grace, to anybody, any leader in the church, right? Go to them, but don't leave here tonight or whenever it is without stepping out of your comfort zone and making a decision. Way too many times we simply just go with our lives, going with our lives, getting through it, and we see how time flies. Another school year that ended, another grade that we're going into, another chapter that we're heading into our lives, and it just shows you how fast life is going. Don't waste it. Don't spend it with nonsense. Ask yourselves the questions that need to be asked. Make the decisions that you need to make. And that's my message to you guys today. There is life in Jesus.